Well, hello, I'm Rebecca Pugh, and grateful to have the chance to speak with you today from the First Church in Ipswich. And for the support of the church, I'm also grateful for my colleague Chris Dorman, who's a deacon and a filmer, and for the congregation, and for my colleague Dr. Anita Kupris and her Labyrinth Choir, who will sing after the sermon today a song called This Blessed Night by Daniel Ganthrop, and the words are by Jane Greiner. These lovely words: bless the work of my hands, bless the words of my mouth, bless the patience of friendship, bless the kindness of strangers. Anita's choir, Labyrinth Choir, is a Massachusetts-based internationally traveling choir which sings in English, Latin, Italian, Urdu, Estonian, Latvian, Spanish, Hebrew, and French. So welcome to this message about peace today and about harmony with animals and people and plants, harmony between the species. I want to start with a story from my father, who, when I was a baby, was working with computer systems at MIT, and he had a computer that he worked with which was as big as a house. And he developed a program called Systems Dynamics. And in Systems Dynamics, you're studying how one thing that changes affects other things that then change, which affect a third set of things, which then change, and what that means, what that can mean on a lot of different levels. He studied the London Underground, and he studied animals on a hillside. And the one that I remember the best, as he taught it to me when I was growing up, was what happens on a hillside. So here we are on Strawberry Hill, this beautiful marsh and hill in Ipswich. If you have a hillside with a wolf on it, and rabbits and deer and trees and grasses, and something happens to the wolf, it affects everything else. And he would draw diagrams about it. You know, if the wolf is taken away, then the deer and the rabbits, who used to kind of be, shall we say, supervised by the wolf, are suddenly not supervised, and they start eating extra grass, extra tree bark, and if you eat around a tree, if you eat all the cambium around a tree, the tree dies. And what happens on the hill then, if you've taken the wolf away, is that then the rabbits and the deer overpopulate, and then they don't have enough food because they've eaten all the food, and then they starve. And then the rain washes the mud off the hillside down into in this case, the marsh, or if in the case of the hills my father studied, it would be the river. And then the river clogs and becomes polluted, and it's kind of a series of causal troubles that happen with disrupting part of an ecosystem, is the way my father used to teach about it and understand it. Well, St. Francis was very interested in wolves on hillsides also, and he spoke again and again in his life about finding ways for communities to live in harmony and sort of submission to each other, like respect and honor and bowing to each other. And he, one day in his travels, ended up in Gubbio. This is a story Catherine Carney Feldman loves to tell. Ended up in Gubbio, and there was a wolf at the edge of this farming village in Gubbio. And the people said, "Francis, we have trouble with our wolf. We need you to solve this problem. It's so bad. It's so violent. The wolf is terrorizing our sheep, our children. We're scared. Like, fix it." And the people had actually taken up arms against the wolf, but the wolf had outsmarted them. The swords and the spears and the shields, none of it was manageable to them because the wolf was so smart. And Francis said, "Let me go to the edge of the fields, and I'll talk to the wolf." So Francis hikes out to the fields, hikes to the far edge of the fields, finds the wolf, and the two of them have a long talk. Well, this is one of the things I love about Francis, is that he's able to talk with all kinds of creatures and people. He's not afraid of anything. He's such a brilliant negotiator, and he's also so much kind of in the pulse of the universe and the pulse of life that he knows the words, even when it's another creature. He never was at a loss for words, no matter what species he was speaking to. So Francis and the wolf come up with a plan, and their plan is that if the people of Gubbio would feed the wolf, then the wolf would stop eating their livestock and stop terrorizing them. And so Francis goes back with that message to the people. The people are delighted to get that message. They think that's going to be fine. So one set of families agrees to make the oatmeal for breakfast. Another set of families agrees to make the split pea soup for lunch. And a third set of families is planning a salad for dinner. And it's all organized. And the wolf is very pleased to be fed, likes the company, the attention, the food, and So everyone does better because Francis was able to figure it out. And it's so brilliant to say, not just let's take up arms against each other, but what is the problem that we're trying to avoid looking at? Let's try to look at it. Let's talk about this. Let's discuss this. Let's listen to each other. I love it that Francis is able to do that. When Francis gave the prayer, make me an instrument of thy peace, where there is hatred, let me sow love. It's such an important lesson about kind of digging beneath the hatred, digging past the enmity, looking past the swords we've taken up against each other and finding a way to be in community with each other. And we've loved that prayer. We say it to each other again and again these days. It's lived very well for these past 800 years. People are very grateful for that prayer. Nobody has a single problem with it. And people love to try to get to the bottom of it, to dig into it. And I feel like the gifts of that prayer are so rich as we think about how to look where there's hatred and try to sow love. It certainly has implications in the world, for nations against nations, and it certainly has implications among the species, as people have indeed been in opposition to wolves and others. It's interesting to note that the wolf is one of the keystone species, and that there are several kinds of keystone species. There's the keystone species who are predators. This was a way to understand different types of crucially important species in the 1960s. The predators, like wolves or sharks, kind of help maintain this health of the mountain and or the hillside or the oceans, because they'll cull out the weaker species that need to be hunted. And then there's the keystone species that are the mutualists, the ones who kind of support all the balances where a creature will give something and receive something back, like the saguaro cactus and the hummingbird, where the hummingbird helps pollinate. The saguaro cactus offers fruits and shelter, and the creatures who come to it pollinate from one fruit to the next plant. And then there's the engineers, who are the third kind of keystone species, like beavers and termites, the ones who kind of rebuild things and move things along and shift things. The termite shifting the way the rivers flow, the beaver shifting the way the rivers flow, the termite, building things and moving, construction stuff around. And so you think of those hillsides of termites in the rainforests. So there are these species that Francis knew were crucial 800 years ago. My father knew they were crucial in the 1960s. And the thing that I love to honor about both St. Francis and my father is this kind of stepping back for a minute and seeing with a different set of eyes. Where there is hatred, let me sow love. Stepping back and saying, I don't have to despair this wolf. I don't have to take a shield against it and a sword. I need to think with holy eyes, with sacred eyes, and look at this another way. And the thing I love, too, about the end of this story of St. Francis and the wolf of Gubbio is that the wolf then lived at the edge of the village very happily for 2 more years, and then it died of old age, very well fed. And the people were sorry to see it go. They had a proper funeral for it, buried it, made it a little stone, and marked the grave. And eventually a church was built near the bones of the wolf. At least that's what the legend came to be, but that was in the 12th century. And so as time went by over these next many years, people wondered, did it really happen? Was there really a wolf underneath all of this church that was built? And then in 1876, when it was time to renovate the church, they dug around the foundation, and they found right at the edge of the corner of the church this set of very old bones of a wolf. And they realized it was true. It was scientifically proven as well as legendarily proven, as and stories are true anyway. But it was very dear to them to find these bones. So they brought the bones of the wolf into the center of the church and built a special shrine for them and cherished them. And that culture loves to save these relics. And there were the bones, part of the reliquary of this congregation. And that church, you know what it's called? The Church of St. Francis of the Peace. So we have these gifts that come from the ancient days, from the mystics in the 12th century, in modern times, like the engineers of 1963, my father. And often they point us to a parallel and a similar thing, to to take care of each other, to cherish each other, to look at the conflicts and look beyond them, or look deeper, or see the hidden secrets and values of perhaps the despised ones. Perhaps the ones we hate are our teachers. Perhaps the ones we hate just need us to make breakfast for them, or perhaps the ones we hate are going to actually save the hillside and save the river if we can give them the chance to do just that. So I'm here on Strawberry Hill, and we can hear the voices of a lot of different birds here. It's lovely to be here. You know, I can hear some of the sandpipers here. There's one on this side, and we a little while ago heard a kingfisher, and it's just it's a great place to be thinking about all these mutual species taking care of each other and helping each other. And in conclusion, I'd like to sing you the song from Sweet Honey in the Rock. For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe. For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. Thanks be to God. Amen. Beloved friends and family, may the peace of the winding road be under your feet. May the peace of the shining stars be over your heads. May the peace of the warm wind be always at your backs. And may the deep peace of the Prince of Peace be with you, body, mind, and spirit, this day and every day. Go in peace. Amen.